The General Assembly is back to work, including Republican Senate Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz and House Minority Leader Mike Chippendale, the loyal opposition, in studio with us today. Hey, thanks for coming in to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
What did you notice about those opens? They're all Democrats.
Absolutely.
One after another. How come you can't get more Republicans in this neck of the woods? Why?
Well, it's a battle that in the Northeast we've been dealing with. It's clearly a very liberal part of the country, and it's our cross to bear. Right? It's our job to get more Republicans elected, and that's what we're trying to do.
All right. Now you've heard. We've all heard this. Some of these Democrats in the State House, they'd be Republicans if they thought they could win. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think they're Democrats, and they're kind of like the my family members. The JFK Democrats. But they, just like the Republican Party, we have a big tent, and we have a diverse group of people that join the Republican Party, and I believe the same is true for Democrats.
Well, I've heard that old line Kennedy Roosevelt Democrats, Johnston, parts of Cranston, but some would say, Speaker Mattiello was pretty conservative, used to call himself the firewall against the progressives, and I've heard some people say, some of these leaders, they might be Republicans if they thought they could get away with an R next to their name, but they can't. Do you subscribe to that? I'm not breaking news here.
Yeah, no, I think if we're viewed in the context of D.C., Republicans versus Democrats, that sounds absurd to make that assertion. But I think in the context of Rhode Island Democrats and Republicans, there really is a conservative middle ground that we share.
All right. I remember then Senator Chafee, the father, John Chafee, and Lincoln Almond, who we're going to remember in just a second. They had a conclave. They got together and they came out and said, we're going to get more Republicans elected. Look how far back that went. There's been no progress. Why? Now, you're a little newer to the game, we understand that, but you've got the historical perspective. Yeah. Why no progress? Why?
Well, I think we need to stop looking at the past and look to the future. I think that Republicans need to change the way that they look at elections. I've always been the type of person to vote on Election Day. It was kind of, ever since I was 18 years old, if the polls were open on Election Day, I was voting. And I think early voting is something that we need to look at, but also we look at ballot harvesting. People are able to do that. Democrats do it very well, and I know Republicans don't like to do it, but it is the law, and as long as we follow the law to the letter of the law, then we need to be doing the same thing as well.
Okay, well, I tend to agree with you. The new voice is saying we've got to get as good as the Democrats at early voting, at getting in those nursing homes and senior citizens and the mail ballots. And if you want to call it ballot harvesting, whatever's allowed legally under the law, the Republicans aren't as good at that. In fact, I had your party chair, Susie Yankee, in. The Democrats are much better. The Republicans aren't as good at that. I had your party chair, Susie Yankee, in, and I said, well, do you want to lose? And I meant that not sarcastically, but you've got to get better at that. Why haven't you embraced that?
In 2020, we had a robust ballot operation because obviously we were under COVID constraints. This year, clearly, the new law was in effect, and we worked diligently. The difference, Gene, between Rhode Island voters who are Democrats and who are Republicans are inherently untrusted. They don't trust the process, or they want to do it themselves. So while we facilitated people getting the mail ballot applications, there was no way that people who support us would hand it back to us or any other surrogate to then deliver it. They will do it themselves. They value the sanctity of that privacy. And so we will never see the numbers, but we still have to do a better job at getting more people to embrace voting by mail.
Okay, so what's the action plan? Are you going to be out more in the what do they go to the senior citizen centers, right? They bring the cookies, they bring the pasta. Whatever they do, it works. Are you going to mimic some of that, copy some of that? What's the advice when you get together?
I think so. I mean, if you're looking at the way the Democrats do voting here in Rhode Island, I think they've been successful, right? I think we could all agree to that. And so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to take a page out of their playbook, and we need to become better at it ourselves.
All right, let's talk what just happened a couple of weeks ago at the building you both work in, the State House. It was a homeless encampment. Wow.
Yes.
It only got cleaned up after Channel 10 showed the video of the clothing and the tents and the garbage and the needles and the defecation. How is that allowed to happen, Rep?
You know, Gene, I think while a lot of people were repulsed, the initial reaction is repulsion, it was always a reminder that, look, this is a problem that the people of our state are facing here in Rhode Island. And I think there was a level of appropriateness in that display. But to the horrors that you just explained, that became an emergency of health and safety of those who utilize the public's building, the people's house. But I still believe that now that it's cleared out, we cannot take our eye off of that issue because it clearly is an overwhelmingly damaging issue to the people of our state. But we have to treat it properly, and we have to do the right thing as swiftly as possible because it's not going away. Because those tents are gone, the issue has not been resolved.
How do we fix it? How do we fix it? Build more shelters, rent more hotel rooms, and affordable housing. And in many cases, affordable housing is going to mean free housing. Now, that's the buzzword, affordable housing. What do you say?
Well, I think it's not just homelessness. You know, there are individuals who find themselves in a tough spot because they don't have enough savings or because, you know, they hit some financial hard times and they need to get back on their feet. I think those individuals, you know, obviously we can help them swiftly. But when it comes to some of the individuals that we found on the State House lawn, we also have to look at mental health and we also have to look at drug abuse and get people the services that they need, but also house them as they're recovering and as they're seeking help for their mental health.
Do you want to both lay out the governor for allowing it to go on so long? I asked him about it in the debate. How about the housing secretary who's failed to come up with reports that were due to you, to the legislature? And how about sending out one of the deputies to say we failed? That was when they lit the Christmas tree. Remember that?
Yes.
So go ahead. You're the loyal opposition. Do you want to lay out the McKee administration?
I won't be as sharply critical of the McKee administration as I will of Director Saul. I've been on the Low Moderate Income Housing Commission since prior to Saul's time here as the secretary, and to say that I'm underwhelmed is to be kind. He appears to me to be very academic in his knowledge, but not practical. And frankly, that he missed his very first obligation of reporting to what is an important body within the structure of the legislature tells me that he is failing. And frankly, we don't have the time in this emergent situation to wait for him to figure it out, and he needs to go.
Okay, well, that's decisive. Do you agree with that?
I do.
On the Senate side, you agree with that?
I do. And, you know, we just received a report. Yesterday was just released, so I haven't had the chance to read the entire report, but I was able to scan it, and it seems as though it's just generic information, and so it wasn't even Rhode Island specific. And that's concerning because this is your job. You're the czar. We expect Rhode Island specific data.
How about the governor, though? Should he have acted quicker to move those tents off the State House? Is that now a permanent platform for protest?
It appears that that's what it's becoming, but again, there's an element to that display. I think that was important and served a purpose because it puts it into the face, our faces as policymakers, but the public's face as well, because we can't forget about that. Out of sight, out of mind is not going to solve this problem. I am, again, going to hold off on being critical of how the governor handled it because it was an extremely difficult situation to handle. But how we go forward is going to reflect how I view his actions.
It's not a question of money. Speaker Shikarchi said, we've thrown money all over the place at this, millions and millions. You know, he let out, they gave Crossroads $10 million. He said that, $10 million? Is this all money going into a black hole? Go ahead, whoever wants to take it first.
Anybody who receives funds from the government should be held accountable, and we need to know what are they doing with these funds, because it is a lot of money and it should have helped a lot of people. And having these individuals sleep on the State House lawn in the cold was totally unacceptable. There's just no need for it. Okay,
let's move on to what's coming now. They've got, is it $660 million surplus?
I believe it's come down a little bit from there, but it's around 610 or 615,
yeah. Well, okay, that's...
very close.
That's a lot of money.
It
and
is.
It's my understanding everybody's got their hands out.
Of course.
Who should get that?
The people who gave it should get it. In fact, it should just be returned back to the taxpayers proportionally.
You mean everybody who pays taxes in Rhode Island?
Yes.
We're going to give you a cut back like they did in Massachusetts?
It's their money, Gene. It's their money, and if it wasn't used by the state, it needs to go back to the taxpayers, and we can budget this year for the needs we have.
You agree?
Absolutely. I mean, what happened is that we took too much and we need to give it back. And there are ways that we can do it. If it's cutting them a check or lowering taxes, I'd love to see a 5% sales tax compete with Massachusetts and neighboring states. I think there are ways that we can do it.
You know, we wouldn't even cut the gas tax
I
by
know.
a quarter here. What do you think the chances are that you would prevail upon the Democrat leadership to cut? Would this be everybody, by the way, or would it be income based?
It would be based on how much they put in. Proportionally, they would
Okay.
receive proportionally the same level of refund.
If you paid, you're going to get back. No matter if you're a millionaire or whatever you're making, you get a portion back.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, what do you think the chances are that will happen?
Of course, we have to remain optimistic that with a state motto of hope, we can only cling to that, and we do. We have over the years advocated for various tax policies that, while they never passed under the name or the banner of the Republican Party, have in fact become law, and we can just look at this past session to see some of those victories. And that is the job of the loyal opposition, and to that end, we'll continue to do what we do and represent the ideas we believe are the best for the people, and then our colleagues on the other side will eventually see things the right way and come along to our side.
Well, you've given me two headlines. You think the housing secretary ought to be gone yesterday, and you also say that surplus money ought to be given back to the taxpayers, all of them, regardless of what you're making. If you paid, you get a cut of the surplus back in your pocket. Make another headline. What is your top priority? Go ahead.
I think our top priority is education. Since I've been elected, and I have three young children in school, and education.
Public school?
One is in private school, two are in public school.
Okay.
And that's because of his educational needs. But
I don't think anybody has to apologize for
no,
putting their
no.
kids in private or
And
public.
listen,
it's your family.
If I lived in Providence, I would not send my
the
kids to
mayor
Providence.
just said that too.
Absolutely
The
not.
last mayor, Louisa, said that.
Absolutely not. And I think that children trapped in failing schools, that's incredibly unfair to families, because education, we know, is the pathway to a better life, to prosperity, to having the American dream. And I think the children should have the right, if they're in a failing school, to go somewhere else in the state that can provide them the education they need. And I mean, if it's a public school or a private school, it's unfair to keep children trapped, and it's essentially what we're doing. We're trapping them in a failing system, and they have no way out. And in fact, I would point to the RICAS scores. I think for Central Falls, less than 1% proficiency in math.
It is
Gene,
stunning.
these are our future leaders, our business leaders,
I understand.
our senators, our reps. We have to do so much better.
Take 20 seconds. I've got to wrap, but I will have both of you back on my radio show because there's a lot more to talk about. Take the last 20 seconds, Rep.
To Lincoln Almond's passing, a man who was of the highest integrity, who tackled organized crime, political corruption, drugs. He was a man who oversaw Rhode Island's last great economic boon, and it was his tax and regulatory policies that helped us achieve that. He's a great man of honor, and I just wish to remember his legacy today.
A nice way to end our interview. Again, both of you come on the radio with me. We'll take some calls too. For now, thanks to the Republican
Thank you,
Senate
Gene.
and House leadership. Appreciate both of you, and good luck in the new session.